Hey everyone, what's up? I'm Ryan, and welcome to another Quintel Designs video tutorial. Today, we're going to be jumping into Photoshop because I am going to be paying homage to the fantastic HBO series True Detective. It has a very cool look in the intro that you're going to see before I start all this talking. And we're going to try and recreate that sort of effect of these ghostly images on this pale background. I think we're really gonna have some fun with it, and let's just jump in and get started. The first thing I'm gonna do in Photoshop is make a new document, and I'll call this True Detective. And I'm gonna make it 1920 by 1080. That's the size of a 1080p television screen. So let's just pretend this is for broadcast, or we're gonna put some motion to this later. I want this to be ready for full HD. Of course, if you were making a real TV thing, you would probably TV thing. That's a very technical term. If you're making a real TV graphic, you probably want to do larger than HD. But we'll just do 1080p for now. So you can see I made this True Detective tutorial folder, and you're going to be able to download this from Quintel Designs. And no, I'm not hosting it anywhere else. I basically went through Google Images and found some great shots of Louisiana. Here's a great, it looks like Stefan Gaudry did this in 2013. That's a really cool image. Here's a church. I just figured there's a lot of churches in the series, swamps, industrial parks. You get the idea, as well as a couple images right from the series itself, including their burnt down church that you see, our two detectives, and of course this Matthew McConaughey shot, which we're going to use, or this Rust Cole shot, which we're going to use in the tutorial. And finally over here I have just some smoke, and I'm going to use that to put some atmosphere on the whole document. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my picture, and of course you can use a picture of yourself or a friend or whatever you like. I'm going to use an actual picture of Matthew McConaughey for this, and drag him right into my Photoshop doc. I'm going to size this up so that we have pretty good coverage in the document, and I want his shoulders to naturally sort of clip off the canvas. So right about there, where it looks like I've got the whole frame of him. And he's making this. You can see I have my grid on. I'll hit Command H or Control H in Windows and hide my grid. And you can see, really nice picture of him. He's looking very grimacy, very detective-y. And next, we're going to just apply a mask to him. So that's down here in the Layers palette. Add a layer mask. I'm going to grab a paintbrush, and I'm going to make the hardness probably around 70. The size is good. I'll make it really large, and make sure black is selected in your palette. And I'm just going to start chopping off the majority of all this sort of background. Be careful here. You do, like, there's a few stray hairs. I can ignore those because we want a pretty tight crop. But just click pretty lightly until you get the majority of this chopped off. And there we go, something like that. Now I'm going to go in, zoom in really big, and drum the size of this way down. Now something like 19. And you can see that's going to allow me to really get close to the edge here. You can see there's some hair back there, but I'm going to ignore that. And you can actually use the left and right bracket keys on your keyboard to slowly chop this stuff up. When you get to corners, get it real small. Get in that corner, and then you can make it a little bit bigger again. So left and right bracket. What I'm going to do is finish masking this out. I'll fast forward it, and we'll pick up after all this masking is done. So stay tuned. I just wanted to pick the video up for a second and talk about the technique I'm going to use around the hair. Now, since hair is really specific, what I will do is probably mask into the hair, and just every once in a while leave some of this stuff. And you can just make a really small brush kind of make it feel choppy, random. Try and respect that original texture of the hair. And then once you've kind of chopped off around the edges of the hair like this, you want to make sure that you get enough distance between the hair. Then you can make your brush bigger and mask out all this extra stuff. And yeah, that looks kind of weird up close, but you can see once we get far away, it's going to look really clean on that edge. So, I'm going to continue to chop up the hair, and masking is going to take a while on your image, so you got to be patient when you're doing a really good masking job, because the difference between a good mask and a bad mask, or a sort of sloppy mask, is really going to affect the quality of this final piece. So it's really worth spending a lot of time and paying attention to this part of the process. While it's probably the least exciting part, it's definitely the part that has the largest bearing on the quality of your document. So back to it. Test your patience. Here we go. And there's our mask. Okay. So, we did mask out just the character, but you probably... let's see, I'm going to miss a piece right up here. Okay, now my mind can be at ease. So what we can do is Option or Alt-click the layer, and you can actually see the exact mask I drew. And we can use this mode to sort of clean up the edges as well as turn up our hardness and just extend this mask out to the edge of the document. Now, why are we doing that? Because we're going to use this mask not just for our character layer or our portrait layer. We're going to end up using this mask for a few other things. So we want to make sure that it goes all the way to the edge. And that looks good. So now that we have our character masked out, it's time to bring in some of our images. So if we go back and look at our folder here, let's try, we want to go for one of the specific looks. We're going to use this industrial park that's kind of, or a power plant, I think, that's going to kind of creep into his head. And then we'll use something akin to either this swamp or even this is even better, to sort of get the body going with a lot of texture. I kind of like that, so I'll just hit enter and drop that in. And let's also drag in our power plant. So these are both really large images. And I got all these images off of Google Image. Now, I want to be clear, I don't own the rights to these images. Certainly not the ones from HBO. Those are copyright HBO. These images came from across the web from many different websites, so you can obviously Google things like Louisiana Power Plant or Louisiana and get similar results, or download this package from Quintel Designs. But I have to remind you, you can't sell this work. You can't claim that it's your work. So with that, we'll move forward. Now we're gonna take both of these layers and essentially make them clip to the layer underneath, and you can do that by holding Option and just clicking on both of these layers. And you can see, just like that, we have ourselves a nice masked out image. Now I'm gonna try and get some blending going on. I'm gonna sit the swamp over the power plant. I'm gonna take the swamp and drop its opacity a little bit. This is just going to add some interest and some texture to the bottom of the power plant. I'm going to take this and make it a little bit smaller. Make sure it fills up both the shoulders. Now I'm going to start masking this out as well. Just make your hardness all the way down and you can crank your size up. I'm just going to paint in so that our power plant looks like it's got some sort of interesting stuff happening here. Again, the idea is not necessarily to do something completely real looking, but to do something sort of stylized, and that's kind of the look that we have here. And I like how that looks. So now the next sort of aspect is the coloring of this scene. So we want to apply sort of a stylized color that's going to give this a particular effect. We're going to do that with a gradient map. So let's take our gradients here and load up some photographic toning gradients, and we're going to append that. Append essentially means add it to the list instead of replace the list. And look at this, we've got some really cool ones. That is almost exactly what we're looking for. This is even better, it's a little smokier. So let's go with something like that, and we'll tweak it a little bit down at the bottom end of the spectrum. Let's add some color to it. We'll add sort of a deep blue. And up in the higher end of the spectrum, you can see the sort of wackiness you can get with that. I'm going to add this kind of neutrally blue. And that's pulling in sort of the look that we want. So if I was going to take this whole gradient, you can see where all the spots are. They're pure black. The second color is 012633. The third color is 413F3E. Make sure I'm reading all these right. Then we have 7F7D7C. And then we have B4, B5, B5. And then up here, a nice creamy F4DFC5. And up at the top, I think is pure white. Yeah, FFF. Now, depending on what images you use, these are going to be different, but I just want to get a little bit of like a brown and blue mix going on here. Now, our next effect, because this isn't just a silhouette that they're using in the True Detective intro, they're actually using a bit of the photo as well. So we're going to make a copy of our Matthew McConaughey layer and just hold down Option and drag it above all the layers we've created thus far. And here he is, he's looking cool, and I'm actually going to go ahead and make another copy of him. I'm actually going to go ahead and make another copy of him in case we mess this up. I do that a lot, just in case I don't end up enjoying the look that I've created. We're going to take his image and go to Image, Adjustments, and desaturate it. So now he's black and white, and then we're also going to go ahead and adjust the levels on him as well. So we're going to go into Adjustments and Levels, or Command L, it looks like we could have used. And we're going to bump up the contrast here. So we get pure blacks, and we get the whites really popping on his face. That's good. So you see how we have all this pure black here now. Now we can take this image and change its blending mode to something different, say screen. And now we're getting some of that more classic True Detective look. But I can hold down Shift and use the plus and minus keys to just cycle between some of the layers. It looks like lighter color might be our winner. So you can see kind of a creepy silhouette of the person as well as the silhouette in the back. Now, the last thing to do here is to give the whole image a little bit of an effect, and that means taking something like sampling one of our really light peaches from that photo, maybe desaturating it a little bit and filling up our background, make a new layer, hit X to flip our swatches, and then Command Delete. And that's a little bit too much. Let's try something a little bit nicer. It might be our gradient map that's doing it. There it is, yeah. So essentially I just took our gradient map, held down Option, and made sure that was clipping to just our Matthew McConaughey layer as well. There we go. So now we have sort of a nice peachy back there. And here's where we're going to add some texture. So let's take our Louisiana swamp now. This is kind of cool. Maybe even our image here of the warehouse. We'll take that. We'll just make it really big. And we're going to switch it to something like color mode. How about luminosity? Yeah, that basically desaturates it. We're going to crank the opacity way down. Only something like 4%. Then I'm even going to distort it even more by just applying a Gaussian blur. So we only get like basic shapes. Then filter noise and add some noise. And you can see it really becomes distorted now. But that's okay. We just want like a generic texture back there. And the same thing for the smoke. We're going to take our smoke. Want to make sure that the edges don't look cut off, so make it full frame. And then let's put it on something like screen. Yeah. Bring that opacity down. So a little bit of a stylized look in the background to our true detective sort of intro. Now the last thing I would do on top of this whole document is just create a levels adjustment layer and play with our colors, maybe make it a little bit darker, shift the medium tones. So you don't want to blow out the lights. Maybe you even take it and say it can only be X amount of light and dim the whole thing. Bring the blacks up a little bit more. And I'm pretty happy with that. So that is essentially how you create that fun, true detective-y look. So I'm interested to see some of you guys take some pictures, turn yourselves into true detectives in preparation for season 2. If you guys haven't seen this show, you absolutely should go see it. It's on HBO and it's fantastic, and it's got a great intro. So thank you very much for seeing this and practicing your Photoshop skills. Thank you to HBO and True Detective. Not that they gave me permission to use the images, but I did. They completely own them. It's copyright. And thank you, the internet, for all these images. And, of course, you can go to quinteldesigns.com and download them from our tutorial section, or my tutorial section, rather. And until then, have a good day and keep designing.